Namaskar. Today we will learn about growing conditions and gardening tools as the first session of the first day in our series of webinars on organic and biodynamic home gardening. So let us start from here. In the growing conditions, there are different factors which work together, and we must understand before we start our home garden, before we decide about where, how, and when to start, and what are the crops we can grow, what are the plants we can grow, we should grow, or we want to grow. So there are few factors which are important to be understood. Following factors determine performance of plants in terms of its health, longevity, and productivity. So, first among them is sunlight. The availability of sunlight. When I say sunlight, I mean sunlight, not the light only, not the light of any other source or natural source. Sunlight is the natural source of light. So availability of sunlight is important, and wherever we want to grow our plants, we must ensure that according to the requirement of the plant, how much light it is getting, or how much period of light is available there. Next comes the humidity. Humidity means humidity and moisture are same terms, I mean the same meaning. When we say humidity, it is about the atmosphere in the air and moisture in the soil. We have to ensure that sufficient humidity is there in the atmosphere according to the suitability of the plant, according to the requirement of the plant, and sufficient moisture is available in the root zone of the growing medium, whether we are growing the plant in a pot, in a container, or in the open space in soil directly. There are plants which thrive well in drier conditions, less atmospheric humidity, and also can withstand stress condition, can sustain in a stress condition. I mean, less soil moisture if somehow it is happening in the soil, still it can sustain. But there are other plants which are very delicate. I'll talk about all these things in the following sessions in respective uh, topics, under respective topics. Then comes the temperature. Uh, Temperature is also very important. Again, atmospheric temperature and soil temperature. Atmospheric temperature the for the can say transpiration rate also is determined by temperature in combination with humidity, and also soil temperature, because every plant has got its own adaptability range of temperature above in the atmosphere and in the soil for seed germination and further root growth. These are the three most important factor on which we don't have any control. Yes, we can do we can create the controlled environment, but here in home garden, I would say that that's not possible. So these are all natural conditions, and we don't have any control. We cannot control that. Next comes the space. What kind of space we have and what kind of plants can be grown in that space. Uh, in that, the space for the root growth and space for the shoot growth. Because if we don't allow sufficient space within the soil for the root growth, then plant will not be healthy. And similarly, if we cannot provide sufficient space for the shoot growth, all around space for branching or growth of the plant, then also plant will not grow properly, it will not look healthy. Then comes the location. in our home where we want to grow the where we want to place the plant, whether it is in container or in open space. Even in open space also, we have to see that the space we are uh, uh, selecting should be according to the plant's requirement, underground in the soil, above ground in the atmosphere. So location is important. I'll talk about all these things in detail further. And then the growing medium, because the substratum or the growing medium can be solid, that is soil, or liquid, like in hydroponics, or maybe air also, like aeroponic. So growing medium is important, and all plants doesn't perform well in hydroponic or aeroponic. So we have to select the medium for, I'm talking about home gardening. So mostly it will be solid, that is a mix of soil and other compost, etc. But some plants can be grown without soil also in hydroponic condition. I'll talk about that. Coming to the sunlight first. So here, if you see in this diagram, this is a plot, and there is a hut at the center, and this is the sun's path. From east it is rising, and then west it is setting. So in the summer season, the sun is rising and setting. This is the path which is more or less above our head, can say. And this is the winter where sun is rising from here, and this path is like going like this, and the sun is setting here, but it is much angular, because the sun during the summer and winter, it moves between the two tropics. So when in our northern hemisphere sun is in the summer season, it is near the tropic of Cancer or on the tropic of Cancer. So this is more on over our head, and it is going on the southern side in the winter, southern hemisphere. That's why it is angular. Just vice versa in the southern hemisphere. So here, if you see that during the morning when sun is rising, whether in the winter or summer, the eastern part of this plot is getting direct sunlight, and western part is getting the shade. And similarly, in the setting time, in the afternoon and evening, the eastern part is getting shaded, and western part is getting sunlight. So this light color is light shade is showing that it is getting sunlight partially. That means not full day, but part of the day for few hours. Uh, as the sun rises from the southern side, the southern side of the plot is getting sunlight full day. So this is showing that sunlight is available full day. If you see here, this portion is getting full day sunlight, and the northern side, which is getting shade. So full day of day, this is under the shade, or can say diffused sunlight. So what is the impact of light? So I have taken few example here, a few plants like bromeliad, calathea, dracaena, Zanzibar gem, etc. The relevance of these plants is that these are colorful even in low light conditions. So here I've taken the indoor plants actually, and indoor plants also can give color without flowering, because these are not flowering plants. But the leaves have different part of leaves have different color, so it gives a aesthetic view, beautiful aesthetic view. And growing condition, these can thrive well in low light condition. So if any dark corners are there inside the home, in those places it can be placed where it gives the color, and it beautifies the place. Here for the humidity factor, I have taken again few indoor plants only. and some are common that way, like Dracena is common and Calathea is common. These are the plants which grow well in high humid condition. That is the relevance is that in it controls the humidity, it reduces the humidity, it absorbs the excess humidity, and it balances the humidity condition, uh, ambient humidity condition, and it grows well in stress also, because if soil humidity moisture is less also, but atmospheric humidity is there, ambient humidity is high, still it can survive. So ideal location can be a bathroom in indoor or outdoor. If you want to keep wherever some water flowing or water is there, the wall is damp kind of thing because of some water seepage, etc., etc. It can be possible in different homes, that some places outdoor also is damp kind of thing. You can place that these kind of plants, and it will be healthy. Then comes the temperature factor. In that, I have given three groups of temperature, three ranges of temperature, can say, and three plants I have taken here. There are certain plants which grow well in high temperature condition. When I say high temperature, means normal and above normal. And you can see here that above 15-16 degrees centigrade or 60 degree Fahrenheit, the plants are generally of tender type. They are quite tender and they need extra care. And again, because these are indoor plants, so I have taken the indoor plants specifically to convey a message. These plants can be kept in the living room where proper aeration is there, and temperature is also not exactly like outside temperature, but then it is slightly lower than outside temperature, but more or less constant, normal or above normal temperature is there. Then next is the range of plant which can be grown, which require 10 to 12 or 15 degrees centigrade, that is just below this. So cool temperature, and they are not very hardy, but better than tender plants. And they can be placed in the passage or in such a place where ventilation is little less. And then next is hardy plants, which can survive well in even lower temperature. Here I would say extreme temperature can be considered here, that they are hardy because they can face the stress condition. They can survive in less moisture and high extremes of the temperature, very low or very high. So they can be placed in the home in dark places where less ventilation is there, and like that. Then comes the space. Now, when I say about the space, you can see different pictures. Here, this is the open terrace, and then after terrace is planned and converted into garden, you can see here. Similarly, this is balcony, or window sill is there, or balcony grill is there. Then even in bathroom or living room, window, kitchen window, or the living room, bedroom, kind of different places. Uh, Basically, outdoor or semi-outdoor locations, if you consider, then open space on ground in front of the house or backyard is a place available. Similarly, open space on terrace, as I have said here, and top floor or balcony space, extra space you have where you can accommodate, or here you can see, and then window sill and the balcony and window grill, etc. This is outdoor or semi-outdoor. This open space or terrace is completely outdoor, can say, or semi-outdoor, like the balcony, the window sill, or the window grill, etc. And then indoor locations like living room, as I said, the living room, bedroom, passage, kitchen, bathroom. These are the places where we can create space for growing our plants, placing our plants in indoor. What kind of suitable container for growing plants in home garden? Next is after the space is decided, then we have to see what kind of container can be placed there, and depending on the type of the container, size of the container, shape of the container, we have to decide what kind of plants we can grow in that and how many number of plants we should grow. Like here, if you see in the independent pots, small size pots, I mean medium size pots rather. Uh, Single zucchini plants are being grown. Here, a series of bottles are placed, and in that spinach is grown, or tires are arranged, and cabbage or onion and different kind of plants are grown. Similarly, the bottles are used, and here it is a vertical system where watering is done from the top, and it percolates down and it waters. So this creativity is individual. Everyone has his own way of thinking and have his own creative capacity. So I will just speak about certain basics about while considering the size and design of container, and what kind of plants are to be grown in respective container. So root system is very important, and there are two types of roots. One is taproot and adventitious root. Two types of roots are there. So we must know the plant which we want to grow, in that what kind of root system it has. And I'll explain about that in further slides, the root structure also. Then number of plants per container, depending on the size of the container, shape of the container, and also depth of the container is also important. So how many plants we can grow and we should grow. Again, it will depend on the type of the plant. Then depth and spread of the root, as I said, will container size should be according to the root system rather. And then lifespan of or duration of the plant. If it is a perennial kind of plant, or it is a biennial plant, or annual plant, or seasonal plant, depending on that, the growth of the plant will happen. And growth, when I say it, is underground root system growth and above ground shoot system growth. So accordingly, the container size has to be selected, because if it is continuously growing for longer period, and it doesn't have this enough space for root growth inside, then either you have to change the container, repotting is required, which is if you decide about the proper container in the beginning itself, then that can be skipped. The changing of the container, repotting can be skipped. Similarly, the plant height and canopy, because this is about the space and the location. If you have the space where the plant is not getting sufficient space to grow, the shoot part I am talking about, then also it is not correct. Similarly, sunlight requirement, location of the plant, as I said, height and canopy. Then water requirement is very important, because how much water is available with you in different parts of the year, in different seasons, and how many plants you can accommodate so that water is sufficient, or you are able to provide water, irrigate the plants as and when required. And if water is less, then you have to select the plants which require less water. So the water requirement is availability of water and the requirement of the plant. If plants want more water, and if you don't have sufficient water, then there will be difficulty. Similarly, the type of the plant, all these factors considering together will determine the type of the plant, and it should correspond with the container, type of the container, size of the container, etc. As I explained about the root, here you can see in this picture, the because of the pot size, the coiling of root is happening, and root is not getting enough space to grow. And when coiling is happening, it is occupying the soil space. And if in a very small quantity of soil, too much root system is there, then it will not get the sufficient nutrient. It will not get the sufficient water. Water requirement will be more, but the container doesn't have enough space to hold the water. So all these factors are there. Here I have taken the example of carrot. Although carrot is itself not a root, but for just for the shape of the thing, or you can consider this as a radish also. Radish is root specifically. So this is taproot. Basically, this picture is for the root structure. This is taproot, and in that one main root is there. From that, the secondary branches, and then from the secondary branches, you can say tertiary branches come out. So this is taproot system which goes down deep in the soil. Again, when I say depth, can be 6 inches, can be 9 inches, can be 14 inches, 18 inches, up to 3 meter also. So must know the root system of the plant, how much deep root system goes, and accordingly, and how much it spreads also. The depth and the spread are both important, because here if you see, it could not go down, so it has bent here, and then the branching is happening and coiling is happening. And because of this too much of branching and coiling, it is occupying the soil space. And if ratio of soil is less to the ratio of the root quantity, can say, then it will get less nutrient and less water. Less water means less nutrient. Here, if you see in this picture, root is growing straight downwards, and the root system is there. So if you compare with this root system and this root system, which one is better? Obviously, this is better, because if you consider the soil volume of soil and the volume of root, for that matter, there is a balance. Here also it is going downwards and root system is going actually, but particularly in this picture, immediately or after some time repotting will be required. So when you're growing in open space, in this picture, I want to say something specific, that in open space, when you're growing and you have already harvested the crop, say for example, this was perhaps of a cabbage which is cut, so root system is still intact in the soil and decomposing. If you plant just near to that, that root system is utilized by this new plant root system, and it goes deeper and faster. And because this system is already there, the cavities are already there, so plant is able to take the nutrient from the larger area of soil, and it is able to spread in the larger area of the soil. And these cavities also hold water. So what I want to say here is that after harvesting, if you don't extract the root system of the previous crop and try to utilize this way, also is very good. Then comes the plant container. Here I'll take a few examples, like in vegetables, for example. As I said, 3-4 types of containers you can have: a square type, or rectangular, round type, or a cuboid type, that is all sides same size. And then the considerations has to be for the height, length, width, and diameter. And here I've given a few examples of different uh, vegetables. Like a beet, if you take the example rectangular, that is 12 feet, 12-inch depth, and 18-inch, that is 1.5 feet width, and 36 inches or 3 feet length. So here depth is sufficient for the beet kind of thing to grow properly, and you are taking 1.5 feet width and 3 feet length. So you are able to accommodate in one container many number of plants. Almost in this, almost 18 to 20 or to 24 plants can be accommodated depending on the spacing, etc. Similarly, for other containers and other crops are there. Similarly, for microgreens, I've taken few examples. Generally, the container size is available, what is available in the market, 3 inches deep, 10 inches wide, and 20 inches length. So in this, you can grow different kind of microgreens. I'll talk about microgreens in detail afterwards. Then the herbs are there. In the herbs, you can have similar different kind of herbs. But in herbs, it is a full plant to be grown. So you have to have a big container, and there are certain herbs which can be grown in more number in one container. So accordingly, container size is suggested here. This is just a suggestion. You can decide your own type of container, your own size of container, whatever is available, whatever you want to use for that. Similarly, for ornamentals, I have not given any name, but again, depending on the outdoor or indoor, different kind of ornamentals. Again, similar like this herbs, other plants, ornamentals or shrubs. Also, you can decide about the thing, and also for the fruit trees, depending on the root system, as I said, you can decide about the container. I have not mentioned anything specific here because indoor will be smaller, outdoor will be larger. I'll talk about the specific in specific section in detail. Then coming to the gardening tools. In gardening tools, most important is the soil, and knowing about the soil, what kind of soil we have, and what kind of growing medium we can prepare from that. And for that, important factor is pH, soil pH. So we must know what is soil pH and how to measure that, how to determine that, how to know that. So pH is about alkalinity or acidity of the soil. In that, the range is from 1 to 14, and between 1 to 14, 7 is neutral. That is not nor acidic nor alkaline, and below 7 is acidic. As you go down, the acidity increases, and above 7 is alkaline, and as you go up towards 14, the alkalinity increases. Now, for most of the plants, the ideal soil pH range is between 6 to 7.5. Certain plants prefer acidic medium, certain plants prefer alkaline medium, but this is the range in which all the plants can survive well. But there are certain exceptions are there which require more acidic medium, or certain other exceptions are there which require higher alkaline medium for proper growth. So this is an instrument which is used for determining the soil pH, and this is a very simple instrument. And these are two probes are there, and you insert the probe in the container in the root zone, up to the root zone, that is up to 6-7 inches deep down in open soil or in the container. And here there is a switch. You set it in the pH, and this needle will tell you how much pH is there, and this tells the pH factor. Now, to know the pH, there should be sufficient moisture in the soil. So this instrument has the moisture measuring apparatus also. So you set the switch in the moisture, and then you first measure the moisture. If moisture is less, water it first, and wait for half an hour, so that the water is well distributed and in the container, and uniformly distributed. And then after half an hour or so, you insert this again and set in the pH, and you will be able to measure the pH. So this instrument measures the moisture as well as pH, and both are important. Before watering, you must check how much moisture is there. If moisture is less, then only you have to water it, and if moisture is too much, then you can skip the watering. In the watering section, I'll talk about this in detail. This is another instrument for the same purpose, but this is digital, and this requires a battery. Personally, I have used this and this. I didn't find this very good actually, because this gets damaged without any reason. This is costlier also. So this is I suggest for this, because this doesn't require any battery or anything, and this is easy to use also. Then another way of measuring the soil pH is with this pH strip, which is available in the market. These strips are there, and here the different colors are there, and besides the colors, the range of pH is mentioned here in small letter numbers. So what you need to do is that you take 2-3 spoon of soil in a container, and then add water, and dissolve the soil perfectly, and stir it and dissolve it, and then allow it to settle down. Once the soil particles settle down, and the solution is clear, you take a strip and just dip in the solution, and dip it and bring it out, and then you will find that the color will change, and after the color has changed, then you try to match the color and see the pH range. So this will give the indicative range of the pH, I mean level of the pH, can say, depending on the color. This is also very useful that way if you don't want to have this kind of instrument. And another way is a crude method. Baking soda is available in the kitchen, vinegar is available in the kitchen, and these two things can be used to determine whether soil is acidic or alkaline, and what extent of acidity or alkalinity is there. It will not tell anything specific like these numbers, or in this meter, or in this digital number, but this will indicate fairly well. You take the soil and add water in that, make the soil solution, and then add 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and then you see this kind of bubbles will come, froth will come, and the quantity of froth, the speed of froth, the how fast it is frothing, will determine the extent of acidity in the soil, because baking soda is a salt, it's a alkaline salt. So when you add in the acidic soil, it will give the froth. So baking soda will determine the acidity or acidic level of the soil, and if there is no reaction, that means soil is not acidic. So what you need to do then, take the soil, and in that, without adding water, you add vinegar in the 1 tablespoon spoon of soil. In that, 2-3 tablespoon of vinegar you add, and then same kind of reaction will happen. And because vinegar is a mild acid, so if soil is alkaline, acid and alkaline will react, and it will give the bubbles, the froth. Again, the quantity of the froth and the speed of the froth will tell about the extent of alkalinity in the soil. So this is basically indicative, but these two things are readily available in the kitchen. This you have to get from the market, and easiest way is with these two, either of the instruments, because this will tell about the moisture also. And another, this is 3-in-1, so this measures light also. So for particularly for indoor plants, which plant should be placed in which location, will you can measure the light, which the low light areas with the low light requirement plants, kind of thing you can decide with these two instruments. Along with the soil pH, the water pH is also is important, because the soil pH, whatever the source of the soil or the growing medium, with that will determine the soil pH. But variation in soil pH can happen because of the water quality also. If water is acidic and your soil is alkaline, slowly your soil will become acidic. And if acidity is more than the requirement, then the soil ultimately will become acidic and go beyond the range of the requirement of the plants. So we must know the water properties also, and in that two factors we must determine. Of course, for soil also it is required, but here if we determine for water itself, for home gardening, that is I think more than sufficient. So these two kind of instruments are available in the market. One is pH meter, digital pH meter for water, and another is TDS and EC meter. Here EC is electrical conductivity. So this determines the electrical conductivity of the water, which is also these two factors are two sides of the coin basically. pH will determine the EC level and EC level will determine the pH level. So these two are independent factors, independent phenomena in the soil, but they complement each other basically. So we must measure these two, and here you can see the TDS also can be measured with this instrument. So TDS is total dissolved solids in water. So if TDS is very high, it is not very suitable for our drinking purpose. But high TDS is better for the plants, because TDS, the dissolved solid, means it is the source of the nutrient, the minerals, etc. So if we know about the water quality, and then we can decide about the growing medium, what kind of growing medium we should have, or if we have the growing medium quality is known, then we should know about the water quality also, and if water pH is very high or very low, we can somehow adjust that also. I'll tell how to do that in following sessions. So here about the TDS and EC, here you can see, if you take water in a glass and dip it and set it in the TDS, so it will tell about the TDS. And if you here see, the different TDS measurements are there. So in case of plants, 100 plus is quite okay, and for drinking purpose, 50 up to 50 range or less than 100 is okay. Then it can measure EC also. You have to set in EC, and then it can measure temperature also. Earlier I have mentioned about the temperature, soil temperature and atmospheric temperature. So in extreme conditions, whether in the tropical region during summer season and temperate region during winter season, the temperatures are extreme. And without knowing the temperature, suppose we water the plants and say in tropical region, summer season, the water temperature is high and we don't know what is the temperature. When we apply the water in the soil, it can do some mild cooking type of action on the roots. And if in cooking, the things what we cook is melted. So what will happen? Cells will die. Root cells will die, and if root cells die, then root system will get damaged, and plant will not be able to take up the water and the nutrients. And you will see that although you have watered properly, but still plant is showing wilting symptoms, and you are not able to understand why it is happening so. It is happening so because root system is damaged because of the high temperature water applied in the soil. The other way is the cool temperature, the chilling water if you apply in the soil. Then also the chilling damage also happens. The cells are harmed, cells are damaged, they die, and same thing happens. You will see that even after you have watered properly, but plant is dying. So overall, the instruments are important for knowing the soil properties, knowing the water properties. Then comes the other garden tools. In that, here you can see the gloves are there for saving your palm and nails. If you use the gloves, then you are not dirtying your palm and nails also. If you have big nails, perhaps the soil particles get deposited behind the nails. So using the gloves is good. And then different kind of tools are there, like the this shovels are there, trowels are there, then this uh, what you call that, for the scratching the soil, the forks are there, and then this kind of fork is also there. Yes, a small size spade, and then fork is there. So this is for digging the soil. This is for scratching the soil. This or opening the soil. This is also for scratching and opening the soil. This also for deep scratching and opening up the soil. This trowel is for used for transplanting the seedlings, and this shovel is used for digging uh, pit for planting the bulbs kind of material. So these kind of things are there. And then scissor is for pruning, cutting, and harvesting the fruits, flowers, etc. Cutting the tender branches. Secateur is again for pruning or cutting the hardy branches for that matter. And then the uh, water can for watering, and the sprayer is for spraying different kind of protection solutions, etc. So overall, these are the instruments, and there are many more kind of instruments available. But these are few instruments and tools, garden tools, which are required to begin with. And then as you develop your garden, as you expand your garden, depending on the space, depending on the type of the containers, depending on the plants, type of the plants, etc. Different kind of tools are there. Like for example, if you want to support the plant, then for supporting structure also you will require. So there are many things that way. So this is the all about growing conditions and gardening tools. So I'll take leave from this session. Namaskar.